Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best items available, including some of my own personal recommendations. Thanks! What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another really cool knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Les George VECP Flipper. Oh my gosh, I'm so pumped about this. This knife was sent to me by somebody who wishes to remain anonymous, and I'm going to honor that. So thank you so much, sir, for sending this and many other knives along. He also sent some gifts, which is really, really cool. Very, very nice of you. Thank you so much. So you guys have heard me talk about the Les George VECP being one of my favorite knives of all time and a knife that I consider to be one of the greatest folding knives ever made. I did not know that he planned to put bearings in it and turn it into a flipper. These were just for a little teeny tiny bit available on his website. They appear to be sold out, but I want to point this out immediately. There is a note underneath there where he says, I wanted to just do a small batch of these at first to make sure everything was in order before I really got into them. So it sounds like the plan is to keep them going, which is excellent because, as many of you know, the VECP is a knife that a lot of people like and is just not ever available. So that makes me really, really happy. This is a mid-tech. It is American made. There's a lot that goes into it. This is not just a simple, couple of pieces of titanium slapped together and made, out of the country. No, this is a very, very carefully created item. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you so much to all of my generous patrons who are supporting me right now. If you'd like to get your hands on these cool stickers and some other exclusive benefits, there is, of course, a link to my Patreon down in the description. The support would mean the world to me. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this awesome, awesome knife from tip to scale. Coming in at 8 1/4, I believe. Blade length coming in at 3.5 inches and cutting edge coming in at about 3.4 inches. That makes it exactly the type of knife that I like to carry, and that's exactly why I loved this knife from the beginning. Really cool. It's my understanding that Les George has actually not collaborated with Rick Hinderer, but I think they get along and they share a bunch of ideas. Of course, the LBS is actually a part of his knife, that little disc right there. And if I understand it correctly, their relationship is a friendly one where Rick has kind of, helped give, I guess, some advice or share some knowledge with him, and that's really cool. Really, really cool. Let's go ahead and get some size comparisons here. Up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 is coming in at 8.6 inches overall, so you can see that this is definitely a full-size knife. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? PM2 is coming in at 8.3 inches overall, even though from that angle it actually looks to be longer. No, the PM2 is definitely a little tiny bit longer. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in slightly shorter at 8 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Para 3 is coming in at 7 1/4 inches overall. So how's the action on this guy? So the original VECP is a mid-tech, right? And actually, even before that, they have a custom rock eye, which is what it's based on. Right, a lot of you guys will know the Auto Rock Eye that ProTech came out with. And then there's, of course, a slightly different model called the Talos, which is also a custom and a mid-tech and was a collaboration knife with zero tolerance. There are, of course, other collaborations of knives that look very similar. The Harpy being one with ZT. And then they have also got one that looks kind of like the Harpy with Kershaw. There's a whole bunch of them out there. Once you kind of gain an eye for Les George aesthetics, you see them all over the place. And it's one of those things where a lot of people are like, oh, I didn't realize, yeah, now I'm actually seeing his designs all over the place. But anyways, the one that I came to love was the VECP Mid-Tech. That knife was on phosphor bronze and was very, very smooth. Glassy, hydraulic smooth, similar to a Sebenza, but a little bit smoother. This guy is on bearings. And a lot of you guys will remember the Eagle Mid-Tech that he did. That was on bearings too. The only thing I didn't really like as much about that one, number one, was the price. Number two was the recurve in the blade. And both of those things are a little bit better here. In fact, there's no recurve in this blade. This is absolutely a VECP blade or rock eye blade. The flipping action is wonderful. It's very smooth. Very similar to the flipping action that I feel from a Rick Hinderer. Great detent, very smooth. It can actually be adjusted if you want to, probably to get it absolutely fall shut, but it is super smooth, exactly the way I like it, just like it is. It's not a guillotine smooth, right, where it's going to come down and catch your finger. There is no double clutch. The positioning of the detent ball, you know, or where the detent ball is when the flipper tab contacts your finger is exactly right. And then it just takes a little bit of encouragement to get it down, and then snappy flipping action. Of course, the flipper tab itself is very comfortable. There is jimping here, but it's all nicely knocked down, which means you can comfortably do this over and over and over again. And it's just an absolute joy. Les George nailed it on this thing. I'm just really, really pleased. Considering I didn't know he was going to do a VECP flipper, I'm so happy that it came out this way. Absolutely. Let's see here. Should we do a hardware check? Yeah, let's do a hardware check. So let me get out my handy dandy WEA bit selector and WEA stubby magnetic driver, 2 items that are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them down in the Amazon store that I reference at the beginning of every single video. Just pull open the store and look for knife maintenance. Guys, the pivot is either a T15 or T20. Let's try the 20 first. Yeah, it's a T20. I love that. You'll never have to worry about stripping out that pivot unless you really, you know, don't have control over your hands. But yeah, the pivot is a T20, and I'm thinking it's possible that the hardware screws or the fasteners on the body are T10. They might be T8. I will take either one. Let's check here. Oh my gosh, Les George, you wonderful, wonderful person. T10 on the body screws. T10 on the body screws, T20 on the pivot. Now, I mean, you guys are like, we always say it'd be fine if, or it'd be better if all the hardware was the exact same size. You're right. It makes it that much easier. But what I care more about is that it's not T6 because the hardware won't strip and the bits won't strip out. The fact that we've got T10 body screws and a T20 pivot, and they still have this amazing overall presentation is just fantastic. Let me point out, we do have, I believe, a captive pivot on the inside there, or at least enough friction on the inside of the non-show side pivot that you can turn this, and you can absolutely adjust this. It's very easy to do. The only thing that looks like might be a T6 on this whole thing is the LBS screw, which I don't really care about. Even the pocket clip screws are huge. That's great. These screws go all the way to the other side, and I used to come down on knife designs that had that until I talked with Greg Geckel from Quest Custom Knives, and he said, no, that's never something that you should worry about. The likeliness of, and a lot of people, a lot of reviewers say, well, here's the problem with that. You got a steel fastener inside of a titanium frame, and then the inner threads on the titanium frame are softer. So if you strip those threads out, right, then the entire frame has to be replaced. Apparently, the likeliness of that happening is so astronomically rare that it's not something that anybody really needs to even worry about. The nice thing about it is that you have less hardware overall, and you can rest assured that those threads are all the way through into the other side. There are a lot of threads going all the way through. If the tolerances on the inside there are, you know, the same as the rest of the knife, which I'm going to say is probably the case, then I would say you probably don't have to worry about that happening. A lot of people just don't like how it looks. Truthfully, I don't really care. I mean, I like that there's only a couple of body screws, that everything is solid, and that it's unlikely anything else is going to strip. The way that Greg put it was, it's no more likely to strip out than any screw that you're unscrewing from a steel barrel with the threads on the inside, right? It's just, you just have more threads going all the way through to the other side. So I'm happy with that. No issues there whatsoever. Let's go ahead and talk about carry profile. So thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. You can see there, we're really not looking at much more thickness. In fact, it's almost exactly the same. Maybe, yeah, it's the same. Really? Is it the same? Ever so slightly thicker on the VECP flipper. How about height? So we do have a flipper tab on this guy, but we have a very pocket-friendly profile on this thing. So height up against the Spyderco PM2 and Para 3 2 knives that are extremely popular, and nobody ever complains about the carry profile or anything like that. You can see length is a lot closer to the PM2, but in terms of maximum height, we're still coming in a little bit shorter than the PM2, you know, in the maximum height. I think maybe the combination of the flipper tab and the body, yeah, it's just ever so slightly taller on the PM2. So no big deal there. If you don't carry anything else in your knife pocket besides your knife, you're going to be fine. If you carry other things, yeah, that pocket clip's probably, or I'm sorry, the flipper tab's probably going to bother it just a little bit. So check this out. On the inside, we have milling. That's pretty cool. A little bit of weight reduction there. Not like the titanium is excessively thick or anything like that. Let's go ahead and measure it. Measure the blade stock thickness here real quick. So blade stock thickness on the VECP flipper, I'm going to guess it's about 155 thousandths or so. Yeah, okay, 150 thousandths. So that's pretty typical of Les George knives. Fortunately, the blades are ground really, really well. So the cutting edge is very impressive. We'll talk about that here in a second. Weight on this guy, I'm going to guess it's probably between 4.5 and 5 ounces. Yeah, exactly. Gosh, that made me look pretty good there, right? I've definitely been off before, but 4.83 ounces, that's right in my own personal sweet spot. I know a lot of people look at, that's pretty heavy. Yeah, if you wear, athletic shorts, skinny jeans, leather pants, you're probably not going to be super comfortable with this in your pocket. I'm not coming down on anybody either. That's fine. Wear what you want. If you wear regular pants, jeans, you work outside or you find yourself outside on a daily basis, right? And you're used to carrying knives of this weight, it's not going to bother you. In any case, this is not an excessively heavy knife. This is definitely a knife that's made for hard work. It's definitely built very, very well. So 4.83 ounces is not something that bothers me at all. You guys will remember, I regularly like to carry an XM18, 3.5 inch, and those with a G10 scale on one side actually come in a little bit heavier. So this is totally fine. Same length, same blade length as an XM18, and it comes in a little bit lighter being full titanium. I have no problem with that whatsoever. Let's talk about the anatomy here. This is the only texture pattern that they were initially available in, and it is beautiful. I'm going to guess that we will see different texture patterns in the future. The VECP that I had was completely smooth stone washed. I have seen, on like the Eagle, is it the Eagle Rock? I can't remember the one that he did. It's got a different sort of starburst or sunburst pattern. And then, he did the monkey edge exclusive with the frag pattern, right? So they definitely do different texture patterns and things like that. But this is really, really cool. There is a specific name for this pattern. I can't remember what it is. But I love all the little intricate milling lines that are going in different directions. And this sort of almost looks like, at the bottom, it looks like the Thundercats logo. But you can see it's coming off the pivot and just sort of rising this way. It is very nice to the touch. It probably provides a little teeny tiny bit of traction. It's pretty minimal. For the most part, it's just a nice thing for your fingers to interact with while you're holding the knife. But it's nowhere near what I would call aggressive or even mildly aggressive. For the most part, the lines on the knife are going to lock you in, and then you gain a little bit of a benefit just from the texturing there, but it's pretty smooth. Very, very beautiful. Obviously, this is all eye of the beholder thing, so some people are going to like it, some people aren't, but it does look really nice to me. On top of that, all of these edges here are nicely chamfered, whatever you want me to say. Tumbled titanium underneath. The pivot looks fantastic. They've milled this sort of circle around there, giving it kind of a pivot collar look. And then on the other side, you can see there it's nice and flush. Beautiful. The texturing also goes around to the other side. This is just wonderful. The inner lines here, all of this is knocked down. Very easy to engage right here. The little relief cut for the lock bar, just fantastic. This whole thing is just this dream of comfort with titanium, right? To some people, this might look a little bit angular, but it's not. It's very pleasant to interact with. There's nothing here that would make this knife uncomfortable during use, except for maybe the pocket clip a little bit. But rest assured, all of these edges, all the corners, every last little part of the knife knocked down. They made sure that that was the case. Up here, fortunately, the jimping up top is functional versus the original VECP mid-tech, or the one that I handled. It was more decorative. No, they've actually made sure that you can dig into that a little bit. It's not aggressive, not at all, right? Whether you're barehanded or wearing gloves, you're going to be able to make use of that. Everything up here, all nicely knocked down. Beautiful tumbled finish. Very typical Les George tumbling. Really, really nice. These are in 204p now, which on the website they list as hardened to 60 HRC. I think that's appropriate. For those of you who don't know, Carpenter CTS 204p is the same thing minus some silicone as M390, and the same thing plus a little bit of silicone versus CPM 20 CV. That's great. That's kind of what the industry, well, everybody's always looking for that steel, right? It's fine. I think CTS XHP was great. I think S35VN would have been great. 204P's fine. It wouldn't be my first choice. There's a whole bunch of, I mean, like a lot, it's just kind of, it's the trendy steel right now. This steel emphasizes edge retention and corrosion resistance coupled together. When heat treated properly, this steel can perform very, very, very well. It will serve you just fine on this knife. And, you know, judging by Les George knives in the past and how long he's been doing this, right, I'm going to say it's probably heat treated the way that he says it's heat treated. So that's fine. We have one of my favorite blade shapes ever, this VECP drop point blade, flat that carries out about 60% the length of the blade, carrying a lot of meat down to the tip. Remember, you know, the spine is what's reflecting here, so it's kind of an optical illusion. It's giving the impression that it's actually really thin. It's not. You can see this line here actually carries quite a bit of thickness out to the tip, but it definitely is still pointy, so your puncture tasks, all that stuff is going to be just fine. The edge comes down, not to a laser beam, but definitely thin enough to do your slicing and your fine cutting tasks, but still robust enough to where you can really take this knife out and use it for what it was meant to be used for, which is, you know, versatile hard work. Absolutely. Blade shape is good to go. Lots of room to drop down towards that edge. I like that it just says George and 204P. And on the other side, it says nothing. So that's fine. There's no excess billboarding. That's all just great. I don't have an issue with that at all. You can see there's a little tiny bit. Actually, no, wait. How does that interact? There actually is quite a bit of shouldering there as it wraps around the stop pin, and that's nice. It's going to help slow down wear over time, so that's excellent. We kind of already talked about the scales here. Wonderful. Fasteners are just awesome. I've got a weird thing about how fasteners look, and these look great. We do have a lanyard hole back here for people who like to use lanyards, and you can see the pattern actually kind of is milled around that hole there, so that's really, really nice. We do have two standoffs in the back here. Sort of Rick Hinder style standoffs. Is going to be really easy to clean out. Really nice looking too. Unfortunately, he has chosen to emphasize the lanyard hole over the pocket clip. The pocket clip is a standard 3-hole pocket clip that's very similar to Benchmade, Emerson, ProTech, etc. Even with that being the case, this is still not a shallow carry, right? I really wish that that hole wasn't up there and it was back here or some, you know, maybe over here. I don't know. Or honestly, I'd prefer that it just wasn't there. And the pocket clip would be able to come up just a little bit more. But because of the style of the clip and the shape of the handle and all that stuff, that's the most of the knife that sticks out of your pocket. So yeah, it's a little frustrating, but as far as carry goes, it's just fine. This is a very simple pocket clip. It's got kind of a bill. It is very easy to get in and out of the pocket, despite the fact that we've got some texturing or milling on this side. It is not a big deal. The bill will catch. To my knowledge, this pocket clip is titanium. In fact, we can test that really quick with the magnet on my angle square. Yep, that's titanium. People always point out, that doesn't necessarily mean it's titanium because there's lots of other things that are non-magnetic. I know. I don't know whose voice that was. I'm so sorry. It sounds so arrogant and preachy when I do that, but it's just a natural response. I'm just trying to be funny. But yeah, no, it's titanium. They're not going to use, it's either going to be steel or titanium, right? Unless you're buying something custom or exotic, you know, whether it's through a certain knife maker on the secondary market and it's Damascus or it's superconductor or whatever, and whatever. This is titanium. That's what it is. It's not aluminum or anything like that. The pocket clip looks nice. What's cool is that for those of you who like to kind of dress up your knives and do little things, Les George kind of does a little bit of what Rick Hinderer does. So if you want different colored standoffs, different colored hardware, or you want a special clip with the George logo, the cross on there, right? He does those. He also collaborates with Derek Obataki from Steel Flame, which means you can get Steel Flame pocket clips for your Les George knife. That's pretty cool. If you want to pay hundreds of dollars for a pocket clip, which sounds crazy, but believe me, people are out there like me who will buy those clips. In fact, when those clips pop up in the secondary market, not only do they sell for that much money, they sell in seconds. I'm serious. They sell in seconds. It's crazy. But anyways, if you want to, that stuff's available. If not, this is a fine pocket clip. We do have the lock bar stabilizer and over travel disc. That's different from what a steel lock bar insert normally does. A steel lock bar insert prevents it from over traveling, but a stabilizer disc prevents it from moving this way and this way. I'm sorry, this way and this way. demonstrated by my finger here. So that's nice. That's the idea behind that disc. It's not going to over travel and it's not going to bend inward towards the frame, no matter how hard you're squeezing it. This does not have a steel lock bar insert. I don't care. They don't need them. Titanium that's carbonized on the lock face will work harden over time, which means it locks up harder and harder and harder the more you use it. Not more sticky, not stickier, whichever word is appropriate. It just means the geometry, it sort of molds itself together with the tang of the blade more and more and more over time, right? So it depends less on proper geometry and more on just how titanium interacts with steel. But fortunately, like I say many times with these higher end knives, the geometry is also fantastic. The end result of all this unnecessary dialogue is that you have a completely and totally solid and dependable lockup that is not going to wear quickly, even though there is no insert. It truly does not bother me that there is no insert. This knife is absolutely dead centered and locks up at about, I don't know, like 40-45%. And it is completely and totally solid. That's I'm serious. It's another one of those knives where no matter how hard I wrench on it, it's not going to move. This is wonderful. This is so good. I am so happy that this knife exists. What can I complain about here? Literally just two things. There's a little bit of a bill on the pocket clip. It's probably going to catch. It's titanium. It's forgiving. You can simply pull it off, bend it back, and you'll be just fine. If you break it, this is a US knife. As far as I know, Les George has a great warranty. Contact them, and I'm sure that they will work something out with you. But of course, I don't speak for them, so you have to contact them. They have prioritized this lanyard hole over the pocket clip, which is a little bit annoying, but it still doesn't carry what I would call shallow by any means. And again, it's just that much sticking up out of your pocket, and that's fine. Truthfully, the combination of ease of manipulation, the overall feeling of everything, I mean, just the quality in general and the ergonomic lines, I mean, this thing is an absolute workhorse of a knife. There's a reason that I constantly emphasize the VECP design, how much I like it, how much I like, you know, the mid-tech, how much I like the Rockeye from ProTech. It's just a fantastic, straightforward design, and it's a really, really handsome profile. There's a lot of stuff they can do with this, and if he is going to, you know, ramp up production and do a bunch of different things, I'm really hoping to see some different anodizations, different anode colors, different texture patterns, things like that. The fact that we've got it in 204p is excellent. A lot of people are really going to like that. And yeah, I mean, literally, like, everything here is just great. I mean, it's everything I loved about the VECP, but instead of phosphor bronze, we now have bearings and a flipper tab and an excellent action. This is wonderful. What do these guys come in at? Remember, guys, this is made in the United States, and it is a mid-tech, which means there's a few more hand processes and human attention that goes into this. This is a $450 knife, and that price is 100% appropriate for what you're getting. $425 will buy you a Hinderer XM18, which is a fantastic knife. You guys know I love my Hinderers, right? And that's a lot of money. I'm not going to tell you guys you have to rush out and spend $450 to get a quality knife, because you don't, right? But if you're wanting this type of stuff, like if you put a big emphasis on the fact that it's made in the United States and that it's hand-checked, hand-tuned, hand-assembled, right? And that some parts of the knife are actually handmade, which is a mid-tech, right? Then yeah, you are definitely getting that with this knife. Absolutely. For 25 bucks more than a Hinderer XM18, and you get full titanium. Oh my good, all day. All day. I don't know when he's going to have more of these back in stock, but I'm telling you guys, if you've been wondering, like, is this worth, it's worth it. If you are regularly, you know, somebody who regularly spends this type of money on knives like this, and you're wondering, is it made well? Is it worth the money? Absolutely. If you've never spent more than 50 to 100 bucks on a knife, it's probably not something you're going to be super duper interested in. But if you ever get to the point where you want to transition from one of those lower tiers up to this, right, you're going to be very, very happy with it. But, you know, get what you want. Absolutely. Everybody has a different opinion on what's worth what type of money. To me, this is absolutely worth $450. I've always had a very high opinion of Les George Designs. I've always very much enjoyed his knives. I've owned the Talos, the VECP, nothing but impressed with those. And this is just another great one to add to the list. That's going to be pretty much it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that metal complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.